Well, hello, everyone. This is Mazske Finance coming to you once again with the fortunate, I won't say luck, just being fortunate to interview my third interviewee, who is Millennial Mike. He's famous in his own right with his own YouTube channel, Millennial Mike. So anyway, Mike there, as I'll call you, Millennial Mike with Mike. Say hello to everyone.
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Yes, Millennial Mike, Mike from Seattle, Mike, the duly elected sheriff of the internet, me and my bunch of ridiculous nicknames. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. I'm down here in sunny Southwest Florida, and it's going to hit about 80 degrees today. How is it where you're at?
It's 16 degrees in the Seattle area, and we got about 8 to 10 inches of snow, crashes everywhere because nobody knows how to drive.
And from what I know, that's highly unusual for the Northwest city of Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, we have rain all year long, but one or 2 days a year we get snow, and then it's just snowmageddon.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, you and I could tell stories. You know, I used to be in the Navy, and I spent 3 winters living in Maine, and that's where it just snowed constantly. In Virginia, it was similar to Seattle, where we got snow each winter, but usually not a lot. But now I'm in Florida. So anyway, so Mike, the reason you're on this channel is you, like myself, you're a real estate investor. So if you can, a lot of my viewers probably already know who you are. If they don't know who you are, I know they will be checking your channel out. But if you can take us back to you, tell a story of yourself prior to owning your first rental, and you can go as far back in time as you want to get started.
Well, you know what I hate about these how did you start out stories is it seems like a lot of these famous real estate investor guys, they all have this like rags to riches poor me story. And, you know, I always wondered, I was like, I don't know if this is true. Are these guys just saying that they came from rags because it makes for a better story? So that's kind of why I actually started my YouTube channel, is because I wanted to actually film myself as a poor person with no money in my bank account. So my first videos are me with like $1,000 in my bank, no rental properties, recently divorced. Just not the best starting point. There's some worse starting points, but most people can probably start off better than me. But I grew up, yes, in a very large household with a single mom who never had a job, never met my father before, you know, lots of siblings and stuff. So we were really poor as kids. And that was when I learned to really dislike being poor. And so I, at a very young age, like 8 years old, I got my first job mowing lawns so I could save up and buy Pokemon cards. I started asking about what a budget was, how much it costs to pay rent and things. Now, this is back in the 90s, so the prices were a lot cheaper back then. But that was where I remember taking out a paper. Okay, I got a budget for gas. Okay, and food. Mom, how much does food cost a month? Okay, how much does gas cost a month? Okay, I actually got a budget to take my wife out. How much does a date cost each month? I remember asking my mom these things when I was 8 years old because I wanted to make sure I got a job so I wouldn't have to be poor, because I hated being poor. And that kept with me all the way through into being an adult. And back in about 2009, 2010, when I was 19 years old, YouTube had been invented a couple years prior. And while I was on YouTube, I discovered channels like yours and channels like mine. I discovered a very little known channel by a guy named Grant Cardone that no one had ever heard of. And his YouTube channel had like 1,000 followers on it. And I started listening to him. And this was before he became an accredited, syndicated guy who's trying to get millionaires to invest with him. This was back when he just taught people how to sell. And he talked about regular real estate that's actually able for someone like us to get. And that's what got the wheels turning in my mind about, hey, this real estate thing makes sense. I should figure out how to be a salesperson and get a better job. I should increase my income so I can invest my income. So from 19 to 20, until I was about 28 when I bought my first rental, I focused on learning real estate, getting a better job, making more money, saving that money. And then at 28 years old, I pulled my trigger on my first duplex, which was a house hack. And I've been investing in real estate ever since.
All right. That's interesting to me, you know, and folks who watch my channel know a little bit of my background, but I was one of 5 kids. My dad was a career firefighter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So growing up, we never had a lot of extra money. I'd see kids in school who had more than me, but they lived in a family with 1 or 2 children and 2 working parents. So I had 5 kids, 1 working parent. But at the same time, I had a stable home life. And I waited a little bit longer to start working than you did. You started at age 8 cutting grass. I was probably about 12 when I started cutting grass. So, but anyway, that was interesting though. So we'll jump ahead real quick, and then we'll go back. Because you started, I think you mentioned you bought your first duplex, but real quick, how many rental units do you have right now?
I have a total of 8 units. I have 1 duplex in the Seattle area, which is 2 units. I have another duplex in Indiana, which is 2 more units. And then I have 4 single family homes.
Sounds good. So you have, I guess, 8 units, but you have 7 doors, kind of like.
I have 8 doors, but 6 properties.
8 doors, 6 properties. I got you. All right. Sounds good. So let me ask you this then. You started getting interested in real estate around age 19 to 20.
Yes.
You bought your first duplex at age 28. Mm-hmm. Knowing what you know now, could you have started at an earlier age?
100%. And what stopped me from starting at an earlier age was a couple of different things. Number one, it was my own limiting beliefs about myself. Well, I can't buy a house or a duplex yet. I'm only 19. I'm only 20. I'm only 21. That type. I didn't know. You weren't in my life yet. And even though I was watching Grant Cardone, he didn't talk to the little guy about how to buy your first house. There wasn't in Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan. None of these guys existed yet. None of them came around until I was 27, 28 years old and already bought my first rental. And so I thought that I literally thought that I just couldn't yet, that I would have to be older. And now, of course, I know that's ridiculous. If you're 18 years old, if you have 2 years of job history and you have a down payment saved, you'll be able to qualify for something. If you go talk to a lender, and had I known back then in 2010, 2011, would have been a great time to get started. But unfortunately, that's just the way that life works.
Right. That's true. That's true. Because I say, like I tell my wife different times, something to the effect that I bought my first rental at age 49. Knowing what I know now, if I could have put that in my 22-year-old brain, yes. I would, who knows where I'd be at right now.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, good. Well, you've probably heard me say on my channel at times, I might say something to the, something similar to every working American. If you're young, if you're 18 years old, it might be tough because you need 2 years of documented working to get that mortgage. But my personal belief, and I didn't live this, but my personal belief is if someone starts working full time at age 18, by the time they're 20, I can't guarantee it, but more than likely they can get qualified to buy a rental property somewhere.
Yep. Yeah. I know a few people who are extremely young and started their house hack at 19 or 20 years old with a duplex. You can get a job prior to being 18 years old. You have to have 2 years of work history. Some people drop out of school early. Some people work almost a full-time job at age 17, 18. So if you get the work history, the down payment, if I had known that, I would have taken advantage of it earlier.
All right, sounds good. I agree with that. Well, let me ask you this then. Could you watch the interview I did last week with Robbie? It's going to be buying my triplex.
Yeah.
You've been through that already. You bought a duplex. You were house hacking. And take us through how house hacking helped you out and helped lead you to getting your second rental.
Sure. So, for most folks, the number one expense that you have every month is your rental payment. Unless you got kids in daycare, which can sometimes get pretty close to it. Usually your what you're paying your landlord in rent or what you're paying for your mortgage is your biggest expense. For reference, prior to owning my duplex, I was paying $1,850 a month just to rent near Seattle, $1,850 a month. When I bought my duplex, I ended up buying a property and my mortgage was $2,700 a month. So it's more. However, I now have a tenant and a roommate. So the best thing about house hacking is I'm going to buy a property that I'm going to live in. That property will have a mortgage payment. But ideally, if I have like a duplex or in Robbie's case, a triplex, he has other tenants that are now paying him rent. And that rent hopefully covers the entire mortgage with a little left over. In my case, that rent I got from my tenant covered about 75% of my mortgage. And then my roommate paid another 20%. So I was paying a very small amount of money each month to live. which allowed me to take my previous living expense at that other duplex, where the other place I was renting, $1,850, and now I'm only paying $300 a month. So the difference between what I was paying and what I'm now paying of $1,500 is what I get to save each month that I wasn't saving before. And every month that $1,500 adds up. And after a year, you got something like $15,000. That's another rental property right there. So house hacking unlocks your ability to save faster. And in some people's case, you get on the property ladder. Now you're building equity. My duplex has gone up in value 30% because of all the inflation we've seen over the last couple of years. Now I have the opportunity to not only save faster, but I've got a home equity line of credit I can tap into. So there's multiple different things that benefit you. In my personal opinion, if you're a young person that doesn't have a lot of money like me, that's how you should start. If you're some rich investor somewhere else, maybe you don't need to start with house hacking. You can just buy your first rental. But probably most people who watch our channel and my channel are newbies who are trying to get started. House hacking is really beneficial.
Yes, I agree. Because one thing, again, I referenced talking to my wife about it. If we had turned back the hands to when I was about 30 years old, I was a brand new police officer. Just prior to becoming a cop, I was looking to buy my single family home. I had 2 young children. Knowing what I know now, I could have looked forward, hopefully have found a duplex, triplex, quadplex. My children were young enough. Would it have been a bad experience for them to live in, say, an apartment versus a single family home for a year or two? Not at all. And that, like you said, that would have freed up cash flow, because you've probably heard me say, when I bought my house, I got paid twice a month. One paycheck went towards my mortgage. One paycheck went towards everything else. And times were tight. But if I was house hacking like you did, it would have just improved. It would have made my life so much easier.
Yeah, if you had, obviously my girlfriend's in the same situation. One mortgage payment is her first paycheck, and she's a cop like me. First paycheck is for her mortgage payment. Second paycheck is everything else. If you had known about this system of house hacking or whatever, you could have delayed buying a house for like 2 years, moved into the duplex, moved into the rental property. Your kids wouldn't know any difference. My son doesn't know the difference between a house and a duplex and an apartment. To him, it's all just space that you run around and break things in, and it's hard because, you say, oh, I want a nice house, I want a yard, I need a driveway, I need a garage. But in reality, I've spent 18 to 28 living in apartments with roommates anyways. What's another 2 years to set myself up for success further down the road? Now, I'm still there because I enjoy saving that money, because I don't have a wife to needle me in the side and say we need a house. But even if you just delay it for a year or two and then buy the house, well, now you have a rental and a house, and it's much easier to continue investing from there.
Right. Very true. Let me ask you this. This is probably the last question. If you were speaking to a young person, not 20 years old, but someone who's, say, 28 to 35, who has already bought their first single family home, maybe they're married, maybe they're not, but times are tight for them. They're paying their mortgage, but just money's tight. One thing, and I've said this before, let me get your perspective on it. Without knowing this person, would you think it would be wise to perhaps sell the single family home and go back to house hacking? Or should they just try to pull the belt even tighter to save that down payment to get their first single family home? Any thoughts?
That's a tough question, because it's going to be very situation specific, and only that person's going to know whether or not they can or can't pull the belt tighter. For most people, they'll tell themselves, I can't pull the belt tighter, but that's not true. For most people, they're spending $6 at Starbucks a day. They're going out to eat a couple of different times a week, and they actually could pull the belt tighter. And people always, they sleep on the small stuff. They don't believe that it really can cumulatively add up to as big as it can. Now, I know your story. You started saving like $50 a month as a cop in stocks, and people made fun of you for it because it was so small. I think the reason that people make fun of you, rather than just say, oh, that's interesting, or even in their own mind say, wow, I'd be surprised if that helps. They make fun of you because they want to put down what you're doing, because they themselves don't have the discipline to do it, and they kind of feel bad about it. Ultimately, yes, small steps when you take enough of them, can add up to be that big leap that you need forward. So if you can pull the belt tighter, pull the belt tighter. Now, if you literally can't, maybe you bought a house that's too big, too much of a mortgage payment, and you're kind of choking and suffering. You're getting by, but just barely. I think for some people, maybe there's hesitation to sell that because, hey, look, I'm embarrassed that I got to downsize. It might not look good to my friends, family, peers, or even just your own internal, how you feel about yourself. Wow, I can't believe I overbought. There's nothing wrong with taking ownership of something that didn't go how you planned and now coming up with a new plan. And if selling your house and moving that equity into a duplex or triplex is a better long-term plan, then 2 or 3 years from now, when you're benefiting from that new plan, you'll be able to look back with confidence, tell everyone else what you did, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. So if you can pull the belt tighter, do it. And if you can't, dude, move into a house hack city. If you set yourself up for success, you owe it to yourself.
That's great advice. I love hearing that. I kind of wish, we could reverse positions. I could go back to being roughly your age, a little bit younger, being in my first house, and just have somebody the age I am now talk to me about, this is the possibilities of what you can do. But back then, there was nobody to talk to me. There was no YouTube, but perhaps there's someone out there who watched this video, and you'll be that little spark, and it's going to help them to take that first step.
Yes.
So, all right, Mike, this sounds good. I know we're going to talk again, so we won't continue your story. We'll do that in a future episode, but you get the last word. So anything you want to say, the floor is yours.
100%. Anybody who's watching any of Mazke's videos and is not subscribed, subscribe. There is a lot of real estate channels out there, and there's a lot of good mentors out there, people with more experience or different experience. But what you have on this guy's channel, on Mark's channel, when you comment, he responds. If you talk to him long enough, you might even get an invite into the group like Manny did recently. Like, you never know. That mentorship, like you said, there was no one back in the day when you got started to help point you in the right direction. And if there had been, your life would be different. But then maybe I wouldn't have met you. So I'm glad that it worked out the way it did. Follow Mark right here on his channel. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can always follow me on Instagram or YouTube. That's Millennial Mike as well. Thanks for having me on, Mark.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mike. And I will put a link to your channel in the description below. So thanks, everyone, for watching. I do hope you learned something from this. And Mazke is signing out.